Fire hip-hop news script. Diddy gets into prison fight and Jay-Z breaks silence. Yo, hold up. Sean Diddy Combs just got dragged into the hole after throwing hands behind bars, and while he's in solitary bleeding from a scuffle over cigarettes and cell phones, Sean Jay-Z Carter finally broke his silence and dropped a nuclear statement that just obliterated every whisper connecting him to Puff. Bro basically said, "I'm done. My kids are hurting and somebody's paying a fortune to bury me." And Diddy? While HOV is out here on GQ covers running offense, this man is locked in a windowless box because he couldn't put a cigarette down. Bruh really woke up in federal prison and chose violence against himself. Before we get into it, like, subscribe, don't miss it, nah. Sean Corey Carter, Jay-Z, HOV himself, dropped his final statement addressing his so-called affiliation with Sean Combs, saying he's had zero business with Puff since 2019 in a rare sit-down cover story with GQ. Meanwhile, Diddy went toe-to-toe with a fellow inmate at FCI Fort Dix in New Jersey on July 24, 2026, and got tossed straight into solitary confinement. Puff really thought smoking in the wrong spot in a federal pen was a power move. That's the kind of decision you make when you've been the boss too long. Now let's crack open the receipts that show why both of these stories connect. Let's start stacking these receipts, because y'all need to hear this straight from the horse's mouth. In the GQ cover interview published April 2026, Jay-Z said, and I quote, "That whole lawsuit thing, that shit took a lot out of me. I was angry. I haven't been that angry in a long time, uncontrollable anger." Yo, when I read this, I had to sit back for a second. HOV, the man who wrote onto the next one, the man who's supposed to be unbothered, is telling GQ he had uncontrollable anger? That's not a PR line, man. That's a man exhausted. That's a man tired of being lumped in with somebody else's mess. Then he went even harder in that same GQ sit-down, saying, "You don't put that on someone. That's a thing that you better be super sure." It used to be like that. You had to be super sure before you put those kind of things on a person. Especially a person like me. Bro said what? Especially a person like me? That's the kind of line only a man with 3 decades of receipts can drop. When I heard that, I was like, nah, HOV ain't playing no more. And whoever thought they'd throw dirt on the Carter name and walk away clean? That's the dumbest flex I've ever heard. He kept going, and this part hit different. Talking about the night the allegations dropped, the night of his daughter's movie premiere, HOV said, "Blue has this jersey with Jay-Z on the back. She put it on one day. She went to school with a J. I was just in the corner, like tears coming down." Seriously. Yo, I had to rewind and read that 3 times. This ain't a rapper flexing. This is a father broken down. His baby girl walked into school wearing his name on her back like armor. And the man who tried to weaponize a lawsuit against him? Nah, you can't do that to somebody's family and expect the universe to just let it slide. Now flip the tape to July 24, 2026. TMZ's exclusive report, the one everybody else picked up late, said this: Sean Combs went toe-to-toe with the other inmate this week inside FCI Fort Dix in NJ. Things got heated after the inmate dissed Diddy, who then decided to take matters into his own hands. Wait, what? Diddy, the same man begging for compassionate release, the same man whose lawyers keep filing motions about his health, decided to swing on somebody over a DSS? That line right there? That's where Puff lost the plot. Bro is in federal prison acting like it's a bad boy after party. TMZ sources also confirmed, our sources say the 2 inmates got into a scuffle and started pushing each other and throwing jabs. We're told Diddy held his own during the brawl, which was quickly squashed by prison staff who separated both men. Held his own. Bro, you're 56 years old and the headline about you is that you held your own in a prison scuffle? That's not a flex, that's a cry for help. When I heard prison staff had to break it up like it's a middle school cafeteria, I lost it. This is the same Diddy who used to run Making the Band. Now he running from correctional officers. And here's the piece nobody outside the culture caught, reported by insider platforms including academics and Sean G breaking the story before mainstream media even opened their laptops. According to those reports, the fight was allegedly over cigarettes and cell phones. Puff allegedly smoked in a restricted area, which triggered a lockdown search, and officials reportedly found 3 cell phones, one of which allegedly belonged to the same inmate Diddy later brawled with. Bro really got somebody's illegal phone confiscated and then had the nerve to think that man wouldn't say something? That's the move of somebody who's been isolated from consequences for 25 years. Add in Jay-Z's parting shot from that same GQ session, the truth, at the end of the day, still reigns supreme, and you got 2 stories running on completely different tracks. One man is walking red carpets with his daughter. The other man is in solitary because he thought Fort Dix was Diddy's playhouse. Now that we got the quotes, let's connect the dots. Look, here's what nobody's connecting. That GQ interview? Dropped in April 2026. The prison fight? July 24th, 2026. That's roughly 90 days between HOV officially separating himself from Puff in the biggest men's magazine on earth, and Diddy getting bodied in the hole. Y'all didn't notice that though, huh? Rewind further, Jay-Z made it clear in that sit-down he's had NO business with Combs since 2019. Think about that timeline. 2019 is right when Cassie left Diddy. That's right before COVID hit. That's right before the bad boy machine started sputtering. HOV saw something we didn't, moved his chips off the table quietly, and now, 7 years later, he's on offense with receipts. That interview? Wasn't a coincidence. That was strategy. Any real one in the game would have waited for the timing. Did he? Bro didn't wait 5 minutes before lighting up a new port in a restricted zone. Now let's talk about that fight itself, because the behind-the-scenes context is wild. Fort Dix isn't max security. It's a low-security federal correctional institution, which means the inmates there are usually white-collar, non-violent offenders. So when we hear that Puff got into a scuffle at Fort Dix of all places, that's like getting kicked out of debate club, bruh. That's the equivalent of getting into a bar fight at a Barnes and Noble. And here's the deeper cut nobody's talking about. Puff is reportedly scheduled to be released in February 2028, but that release date depends entirely on him earning good behavior credits. That solitary trip? That fight? That's the kind of infraction that can wipe out months of earned credits. So this man just risked extra prison time over a beef about smokes. Any smart man with a legal team charging $2,000 an hour would have walked away. But Puff isn't playing that game, he's playing his old game, and that game don't work behind bars. Now here's the part that ties it all together. Remember HOV's line about the truth reigns supreme? Look at the platform choice. He didn't go on Breakfast Club. He didn't do Drink Champs. He didn't hop on $1 million worth of game. Nah, he went to GQ, a legacy publication, editorial control, no yelling, no interruptions. That's a man positioning himself for the historical record. Meanwhile, Diddy? His last public statement came through prison scuffle reports on TMZ. One man is building legacy. The other man is losing his release date over cigarettes. That's when you know Puff doesn't have real advisors around him anymore, because a real advisor would have duct taped his hands to the bunk before letting him swing. But here's where it gets even more interesting. Now check this out, nobody's talking about the language HOV chose in that GQ sit-down. He used the phrase, especially a person like me. Zoom in on that specific phrasing. That's not humility. That's not arrogance either. That's a man drawing a line between his brand and the brand of the co-defendant in that dismissed civil case. When HOV says, a person like me, he's saying, I am not a person like him. Puff, whether he knows it or not, just got surgically separated in one sentence. And Puff really thought loyalty was still a currency in that room? That's embarrassing. Now go to the tears line. HOV said tears coming down, watching his daughter walk into school with his name on her back. That specific image, a jersey, is not accidental language. Jerseys represent teams. HOV is telling us his family is a unit wearing his colors while the world tries to cancel him. That's chess. Meanwhile, Puff's team, behind the wall, is snitching on him for cell phones. Bro couldn't even keep 3 inmates in line, but he used to run an entire label. Now zoom into the fight itself. The forensic detail that's screaming at me. Prison staff had to physically separate them. In federal prison culture, when staff intervenes and separates you, you lost. Period. It doesn't matter who threw the first punch. The moment COS pull you off somebody, the yard knows you couldn't finish what you started. Puff got pulled. That's not held his own, that's got saved. And the cigarette angle? Let's forensic this. Fort Dix allows tobacco in designated areas. Puff allegedly smoked outside those areas. Why would a man with everything to lose, a shortened sentence pending, a halfway house in play, kids at home, light up in a NO designated area? 2 possible reads. Either he genuinely forgot the rules because he's used to nobody telling him no, or he did it on purpose to flex on the yard. Either way, the answer exposes him. Man's ego wrote a check his release date couldn't cash. And Puff really didn't catch that? That's the problem with Combs. He doesn't read between the lines because he's spent 30 years assuming the room bends around him. One more layer, the 3 cell phones. 3. Not 1. Not 2. 3. That tells you Fort Dix had a whole ecosystem of contraband running through Puff's block. And when officials swept the area after his smoke session, they didn't just find his alleged phone, they found other inmates' phones too. Which means Puff didn't just get himself in trouble, he burned the entire cell block. That's snitching by accident. And in prison, accidental snitching gets you the same treatment as intentional snitching. That's why the fight happened. That's why solitary happened. That's not a random scuffle, that's a message from the yard. If Puff had a whole brain, he would have clocked this before lighting that cig. Now, let's see how the media covered this. So here's where it gets funny. TMZ ran the story first on July 24th, 2026, and framed it as a straightforward prison fight, held his own, tossed in solitary report. Clean. Neutral. That's their signature move, get the exclusive, hold the analysis. TMZ framed Puff as a scrappy underdog, but that framing is reaching because it skips over the smoking violation that started everything. Then ABC News picked it up and framed it slightly differently, leaning into the 50-month sentence and the transporting for prostitution context to remind readers why he's in there in the first place. That's ABC subtly reminding the audience of the conviction while the fight distracts. Smart framing, if you ask me. USA Today's angle went even harder, positioning the fight as a threat to his projected release. Their framing was almost cautionary, look at what he's risking. That's the mainstream press finally treating Puff like the story he actually is, not the icon he used to be. Now the counter-narrative, and y'all knew this was coming. Some Diddy loyalists online are trying to spin this, as he was defending himself and any real one would have swung. Nah bruh. Those are the same people who thought the Cassie hallway video was going to somehow work out for him in trial. If you still think Puff is the victim after all these receipts, you're not being loyal, you're being blind. And on the Jay-Z side, the media coverage of that GQ interview has been split. Some outlets, like The Guardian and NBC, framed his statement as vulnerable, human, a man protecting his family. Others tried to spin it as damage control, like HOV was reaching to distance himself only because it was convenient. That framing doesn't hold up. Remember his line about family? That wasn't damage control. That was a father speaking. The truth reigns supreme, just like he said. The media trying to spin this for whoever's paying the tab, but the receipts don't lie. But here's what nobody is saying. Here's what nobody is talking about. The mainstream narrative wants you to believe these are two separate stories. Jay-Z on his GQ cover, Diddy in his solitary cell, unrelated events happening in parallel. That's the safe take. That's the take that keeps the outlets from getting sued. But I'm not paid to be safe. I'm paid to see what y'all don't. Here's the real story. This is industry politics at its most surgical. This isn't about Diddy losing a fight. This isn't about Jay-Z clearing his name. This is about a power transfer that's been in motion since 2019, and July 2026 is when the culture finally saw the receipts in real time. Somebody, and I said this from jump, is pulling levers behind both these stories. The victims in Puff's civil cases didn't have the juice to take down two billionaires. Somebody with serious bag decided one of these men gets a lifeline and the other gets buried. And you can guess which one they picked. Think about it. HOV's line in GQ, a specific group is attempting to destroy his legacy, paying a fortune to create a smear campaign. That's not paranoia talk. That's a man who's been in boardrooms with the same people trying to bury him. When HOV says a group is paying a fortune, he's naming without naming. And Puff? Puff is a puppet, and whoever's pulling those strings just cut them off. The industry needed Combs to become the sacrificial lamb, and he's giving them exactly what they want by throwing hands in Fort Dix like he's 25 in the club again. Now let's talk historical pattern because y'all need to hear this. We've seen this playbook before. Suge Knight went from running death row to swinging on inmates and losing his empire piece by piece. Puff is repeating the same mistakes that ended Suge's relevance. Every generation of hip-hop has a mogul who thought he was untouchable, and every generation, the same industry that built him is the same industry that watches him fall. Puff is on the losing side of history, and he's writing his own final chapter with every prison infraction. Meanwhile, HOV chose a different chapter. That GQ callback, the Jersey moment with Blue, that wasn't just an emotional beat. That was HOV cementing his legacy brand around family, not around bad boy energy. He's cutting himself out of the picture the culture is about to hang on the wall of cancelled moguls. And Puff? He's still trying to be Puff. He's still smoking where he ain't supposed to. He's still swinging when he should be sitting. He represents the old guard the culture is done with. Then there's the psychological warfare angle nobody's touching. HOV didn't drop that GQ cover randomly. He waited until Combs was locked away, unable to respond in real time, unable to hop on Instagram Live and defend himself. That's chess. Puff is playing checkers in the hole while HOV is playing 4D chess on newsstands. Every move Combs makes right now is predictable, because that's what happens when you have no options and no advisors. He's already lost. And the authenticity angle? Puff is rewriting history in real time. His whole persona was manufactured, the I love New York chants, the shiny suits, the mogul aesthetic. And now that manufactured persona is falling apart because the real Sean Combs, the one who allegedly smokes where he wants and swings when disrespected, is finally being seen without the marketing budget. HOV's persona was built. Puff's persona was projected. Big difference. One survives the fall. The other doesn't. And that's the truth they won't tell you. This ain't two stories. This is one story with two endings, and Puff picked his ending the moment he lit that cigarette in the wrong spot. So what happens next? Here's what's most likely to happen. Puff is gonna lose good behavior credits behind this fight. Mark my words, that February 2028 release date? That's about to get pushed. When those credits get stripped, Combs is gonna sit in that cell staring at extra months he brought on himself. And when he tries to appeal it, the prison record ain't gonna forget. Puff will look desperate screaming into the void of a federal appeal system that doesn't care who he used to be. The silence from the yard is gonna hurt him more than any inmate's fist could. And HOV? HOV is gonna go on the biggest defensive tour of his career. He said it himself, 2026 is all offense. Watch what happens. New music. New business moves. Maybe a joint venture that shocks the industry. Maybe a shocking announcement that reminds everybody why he's the only hip-hop billionaire who built his money outside the traditional label game. When that drops, Combs is going to be watching from a solitary cell wondering how the man he used to sit at dinner tables with is now cemented as the culture's undisputed CEO. That's not a comeback for HOV, that's a coronation. Now, if the alternative happens, if Puff somehow gets released to a halfway house early, or if his legal team pulls off a miracle, it still doesn't save him. Because when he walks out those gates, the culture that greets him won't be the culture he left. The industry will treat him like nuclear waste. Sponsors gone. Labels gone. Bad boy? Dead. If HOV even breathes a word about a collaboration with someone Puff used to work with, the message will be clear, the culture has moved on. Combs is not ready for what's waiting for him on the outside. We saw what the industry did to our Kelly's catalog. Puff doesn't stand a chance if the same playbook runs. And in the biggest picture, the cultural impact, this is going to be the moment everyone remembers as when Combs' relevance officially died. 5 years from now, hip-hop historians are going to look at July 24th, 2026, and say that's when the last bad boy went from mogul to memory. Meanwhile, that same GQ interview is going to be quoted in classrooms, business books, and legacy documentaries. HOV is watching the culture crown him without lifting a finger, and Puff is watching the culture move on without him, and there's nothing he can do about it from solitary. Long term, the industry itself is about to shift. Executives are watching this in real time and taking notes. Every young mogul from Toronto to Atlanta is looking at Combs' fall and studying the opposite of what he did. And every one of them is looking at HOV's GQ interview and studying it like a Harvard case study. This isn't just a beef. This isn't just a fight. This is a generational power transfer, and July 2026 is the month it went public. Whatever happens, one thing's clear, Combs already lost. He lost the moment he thought Fort Dix would treat him like a Diddy party. And HOV? HOV's just getting started. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story, smash that like button and hit subscribe so you never miss when we expose what everyone else is too scared to say. Ring that bell for notifications. And if you want more truth bombs like this, click on one of these videos next. Trust me, you'll want to see what we found.